Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. Merry Christmas. We've made it. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Christmas. I hope you're spending time with your family this week or loved ones. I hope it's just full of cheer and blessings. What a wonderful time, regardless of what's going on in the world. This week is lovely, right? All right. Got a special episode for you today. This week, I am bringing on Fritz Zimmerman. Very popular, especially in certain circles like ours, right? Fritz is an author of, I don't know how many books. I have a couple of them here. I have the Nephilim Chronicles, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley. If you're on YouTube, you can see that one. I also have the Nephilim Chronicles, a travel guide to the ancient ruins in the Ohio Valley, and I got it tabbed for a couple places I might bring up to him. But Fritz has put out a new book. I don't have the title in front of me. I'm going to ask him if he'll dig in and talk about that a little bit. I don't know. We may talk about the burial mounds and giants and Nephilim, or we might not talk about any of it. Who knows? It's whatever he wants to talk about. I try to just, hang out and have a good conversation. I don't try to control it in any way. It's unscripted. I might put down some bullet points of what I would like to know. There might be a few bullet points in an email sometimes, but this show does not run off of a script. I think that's obvious by now. It might be a little smoother if it did. If you have an experience or an encounter that you would like to share, holler at me. My email is thebumppodcast@gmail.com, or you can just get at me on the Bump phone. That number is 304-812-0553. I have messages right now that I haven't looked at yet, but I will. Okay, that's actually a voicemail. Sorry, Andy, if you're watching, buddy. I just saw that. That's from 2 months ago. My bad. We'll catch up. I'm sorry. Hopefully you're in the area sometime soon. I'd love to get a cup of coffee. Oh, what a segue. Speaking of coffee, if you'd like to support the show, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/thebumppodcast. I don't want to even ask for $1 right now. This is Christmas time. You guys, I'm sure, are out there just like we are, spending your last dollar to, make sure everybody feels and knows that they're appreciated, or a little bit extra right now. You know what I mean? And man, things are tight enough as it is. But if you feel so led, there's a link. All right. Let's jump right into it. Hopefully, I can catch up some interviews in the next couple of weeks. Being a teacher has perks, and I got a little bit of time off. So I'm gonna make the most of it. I hope, as long as other people's schedules can keep up. We even decided to hit the pause button on our Bible study on Monday nights, just because it's a lot. We're busy. For 2 years, we've been at the church 3 and 4 days a week, and when we do that, that takes up, I don't know, roughly 4 to 5 hours of our day when we do it. No, church isn't that long, but we commute to church. It's about a half-hour drive, and then there's fellowship and stuff like that. And I love every minute of it. And I wouldn't take a minute away from it. But, the pastor brought it up that maybe to avoid people getting burnout, because we've been hitting it hard, especially the last 2 years, to avoid burnout and fatigue. Let's pick a day, let's pick one thing to back off of just a little bit. And that's going to be our Bible study for a couple of months. We can study at home, we can call each other and do that. But that frees up another evening for me to record. And, I feel like this show, um, I try to witness, and I try to be a light on this show. And I hope that shows through to you all. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is the love of Christ and salvation through him. And this is the perfect day to remember that. Happy birthday, Jesus. Right? I know. I've done a show on it before. I've done a church lesson on it before. I know he was not born today or this, or in December. But this is when we recognize it, right? So glory be to God. All right, let me shut up and send Fritz his invite and get this ball rolling. Fritz, thank you so much, sir, for joining me on the show today. I hope all is well.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on, Bo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talked just for a minute off air, but you were telling me about your new book, Ancient America, The Dark Side.
Yes. And that just came out in October. And that is from, I mean, you have my travel guide.
Right.
Over the years, I visited 700 mound and earthworks sites in Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Michigan, photographed 222. And that
Wow.
was 12 years work to go all those sites. And in those trips, I had paranormal experiences. Fort Hill, across the river from Point Pleasant. I was on a bluff in Gallipolis. I don't think that's how they pronounce it, but anybody not from there would pronounce it that way. Uh, and then a UFO encounter in Wisconsin at a burial mound site, and then a subsequent possible abduction on the way home. And I
What?
was riding home with another author. And I'll tell you, we're going to talk about what I'm going to embark on here in the very near future. I can say if it's between UFOs and demons, give me a demon any day. I am just terrified now of UFOs.
Really?
I just think if I see one, that they're coming back. And I can tell that story if you want. But
I would love that.
okay, this is in 2012, uh, late October, 1st of November. And it was the Vortex Conference in Burlington, Wisconsin. Stanton Friedman was there, doing his thing. His name was Steve Schmidt. He was an author. He had just done a book on Area 51. Rick Osmond was up there, and some different authors. And they had this Vortex Woods tour that was in the same woods that I had taken a group out earlier that day because the person that was holding it was saying, I think there's burial mounds up there, and wanted me to go up there and either confirm or deny that they were. And I went up there and there were three. I mean, definitely, yeah, this is definitely a burial mound. It'd been dug into, so the shape was a little off, but
Yeah.
I'd seen that hundreds of times, so I could identify it. So, there were burial mounds up there. Then that night I'd gone for this Vortex tour, and late October in Wisconsin, just colder than hell up there.
Yeah, no doubt.
And We had gone, and it was on this peninsula of land, and it probably was an ancient lake, and there was just this finger that went out. And that's where all this stuff was, which would make sense for the burial mounds being on it. But we got to the clearing at the end, and there was a guy with us from the, I think, the Milwaukee Dispatch Herald, something. Milwaukee newspaper was covering this vortex woods. But to the east of us, there was this orange ball. Um, it was like a ball of light come racing across the sky. It got to where we were and stopped. I don't know how big this was. It was way in the sky and big. And it was orange and red, and it just oscillated these colors. And then slowly it started to shrink. So it's like 80%, 70%, 60%, just slowly shrank and then poof, gone. There's no ambient light up there. So that, I mean, just the sky is just black as black.
Right.
Stars. Oh, and people were, going nuts. You like, thank you, UFOs, God bless you, welcome to Earth, all this stuff's going on. Pretty funny. And not maybe a minute later, another ball came across. And that stopped in this exact same place, right over the top of us. Well, not over the top. It's, pitched up about 60, 70 degrees. So he was pretty high in the sky, but somewhat at an angle. Did the same thing. Stopped, and slowly shrank. Then poof, nothing. And on YouTube, there were people in Chicago that had seen it. And they'd seen it flying across the lake from east, across Lake Michigan. And I was only maybe 20 miles from Lake Michigan. So flew across around Chicago and kind of where we were, where it stopped. There's a lot of people that have seen these orange balls that shrink.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. It was fun. Went back to an old hotel that they had the conference in. And Stanton and those guys. I mean, that's their bread and butter. It's like, Stanton,
Oh, for sure.
should have froze your ass off in those woods because we saw you up. So that was good. And uh, so that happened. And then the next day, we're at the conference. We left kind of late, left around 7 or 8. And we're driving around. The owner wanted to show us mound sites. That weren't mound sites at all. I've been on plenty of those trips. Interesting that Ginger from Gilligan's Island lives up there. Went by her house. Went by Ginger's house. We didn't stop. So we leave around, I don't know, 8 or so, or 9 maybe. So we leave, heading south from Wisconsin, wrap around Chicago, heading back to Fort Wayne. We were north of I-30. I think it was 49, north-south roads, odd numbers.
Yep.
So we're going to go 49. We were like 7 miles from 30. 30 runs across the country, but, we're getting it on the east end of Chicago. Going to take that back to Fort Wayne. We had 7 miles to go to hit 30. And we didn't get very far, maybe a couple of miles. But then it was weird because it was so dark. Looking out, that same black sky. Boy, it's so dark, And I glanced at the clock at the in the truck. I said, Rick, I said, look at your clock. I said, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. But I thought I'd be home by 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I don't know, something wrong with the, clock or something. I said, check my phone. No, it's 2 o'clock. He's like, yeah, wow. Like, I don't know, what happened to 2 hours? So we're kind of befuddled, but maybe 30's just up here a couple miles,
Right.
We couldn't have passed it because, you can't pass a major interstate like that. And so we drove maybe about 7 miles and we hit 114. I know what that is. Say, Rick, we're too far south. How in the heck did we get to 1:14. We got to turn around. So we turn around and 12 miles the other way, 12, 13 miles the other way, we hit 30. So not only is 30 lit up like a Christmas tree, like, most clover leaves are,
Right.
but the Porter County Airport is there. So there's just a sea of blue lights, airport lights. Rick, we didn't pass this.
There's no way.
No way we passed this.
Right.
How did we get from here? We're on the same road. It's not like we're like driving around. We just turned around, went exact same road we're in. How did we pass this? I said, did I doze off? Did you doze off? Like, no, I didn't. I said, well, I didn't doze off. He didn't doze off. And there we were. It's like, well, 2 hours are gone. We went from 4 or 5 miles north of 30 to about 10 miles south of 30, and 2 hours went. So how do you explain that?
Right.
And yeah, he didn't have an explanation, and I didn't have an explanation for it either. Well, how could that have what happened?
Right. It's not like you were just driving and lost track of time because you only went 15 miles difference, so that for 2 hours to pass and just 15 miles, that wouldn't have even made sense either.
No, and when you're going around and 30 is like your destination. I mean, actually your adrenaline's starting to run. It's like, oh, we got through Chicago. That's always a mess.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of Chicago, drop down, hit 30, not that busy of a highway, but straight into Fort Wayne. So there's no way anybody fell asleep right there because
Right.
we got 5 miles to go. You're not going to fall asleep with 5 miles to go to get to something like that. But um, he was pretty shook up. I was shook up. He was more shook up than I was because just like the whole way I'm like, all right, we're here, and we're here. Like then 2 hours go by. Like how did this happen? I can't explain it. Can't explain it. I don't know what happened. And I was telling him because he wasn't on that tour. I said, well, we had those UFOs last night. Maybe it had something to do with that. I can't explain it. So now, I did a podcast the other night, and the woman said, he's like, well, you should go through regression hypnosis.
Right.
Oh, I said no. I don't want to know. I don't want to live it. I don't
Right.
want that to be part of my memory.
Right.
I mean, it's hidden right now. I don't know what happened, but I don't want to, regurgitate that. I don't want to know that.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Um, did you or the other author did you have any of the other like stereotypical abduction um markings or anything? Like did you have any marks on your body you can't explain or any
Uh,
soreness or anything?
no, I mean, not that I remember.
Yeah.
Nothing, like, I didn't feel a chip in my leg or, something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So, no, nothing like that. And, nothing I'd be like, oh, I got this or, this and like this, I can't explain. So, no, just the one big unexplained event, but no, nothing like that. But like, what happened in those 2 hours? Where were we?
Right.
I know where we weren't. I mean, there's what that 5 to 30 and then like 7, 8 miles. So, I mean, there's like 13 miles. We went from one spot 13 miles down the road.
Yeah.
And we're going. It's not like we're on the side of the road either. We're driving.
Right.
Just we're here driving this way. 2 hours go by. So I think if we were like on the side of the road, like, hey, something happened. Maybe we were abducted, or maybe I just got carjacked or something, got knocked out, or whatever. Would have been maybe a little more. There would have been some explanation other than something else. But we were still driving. We just moved 13, 14 miles.
Man. That that's incredible.
So now
Yeah.
And UFOs. I interviewed a guy at the Serpent Mound. There was two UFOs, kind of the same thing. He was talking about, yeah, they were balls of light. They weren't orange, but they were balls of light. So there was two of them, and he was explaining that at the Serpent Mound, and he said it wasn't like 3 minutes later. There's Apache helicopters come flying in, and I said, well, you're not that far from Wright-Patterson around
Right.
Dayton.
Dayton, yeah.
They must have picked them up on the radar and got dispatched to come over there. And if they were low, they wouldn't send a jet; they would have sent a helicopter. But he said, yeah, these things were flying around, like buzzing the Serpent Mound. Like, why would they? Why would they be there? Flying around that thing. So they have been seen at different thing around the Seat Mound in Ohio. They're cutting through Highway 50. But what's interesting is that these geometric works, down Paint Creek, the Newark earthworks, they were all meant to be seen from the air.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
And to give the audience an idea of the size. All right, there's the circle at Newark, there's a circle, and then there's a parallel, and then there's an octagon. And every gateway in the octagon is a lunar standstill, minimum northern moonrise, maximum northern moonrise, minimum southern, bing, 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 It takes 18.6 years for this to all happen. Within the octagon in the circle is a regulation size golf course. That's how big it is. So imagine a golf course with an earthwork going around.
Wow.
So you cannot see. How do you check your work without surveying skills?
Yeah.
Major surveying skills. Because you really can't tell when you're there. Yeah, you can see a gate of the octagon here, and then there's one over there, and then you start losing. So how do they check the work, and why do they build something so massive, so mathematically correct? Because if you put a square within the octagon, there is the hinge. So there's a circle in that, there's a hinge, and then there's a square earthwork. So those would be our four components of this earthwork complex. So if you put a square within the octagon, the area of the square is equal to the large hinge. Now, I just discovered, and that is in the new book, that the large hinge, I have photos of this, is aligned to the May 1st sunrise, Beltane. And then if you stand in the gateway, and it's actually more fantastic even on October 31st, stand in the gateway, the sun will align on October 31st for Salmon.
Wow.
Now, those two dates actually originated in the Levant with the Amorites, the accounted giants in the Bible. It was not practiced by Native Americans. In no instance have I ever found May 1,
Right.
October 31. So the hinge is aligned to May 1. And then there's an alligator mound right by there in Bradville. That's aligned to May 1 as well. And I photographed that. But the area of that circle with if you put a square in it, is equal to the area of the hinge. Now the hinge is 3,700 feet in circumference. The square earthwork opposite that, each side of the square is 925 feet. So the sum total of the square is equal to the circumference
Yeah.
of the circle. Now, the circle attached to the octagon and the hinge is the same ratio as the apogee and perigee moon, which that's the moon when it appears to be largest and when it appears to be smallest. It's the same ratio. Large hinge is a big moon, and then the circle attached to the octagon is the small moon. How did they figure that out?
I have
Now,
no clue.
so we have all these equal areas of this stuff. The area of the small circle to the octagon is equal to the area of the square that's 925 feet. If you draw a line from the middle of the octagon and the middle of the hinge, the highest point of ground around there is Geller Hill. From those 2 points to Geller Hill makes a perfect isosceles triangle. How did they survey that? I mean, everything was laid out. I mean, so Geller Hill is basically the axis mundi
Right.
of the height. It starts there from here to this, and then this line. And a line through Geller Hill to make this axis mundi through the circle and the octagon goes right through the center of it, which marks the maximum northern moonrise. So there's all sorts of math going on in constructing these. I was in a shoot with L.A. Marzulli in his Search for the Nephilim series, and we had a surveyor with us, and he said they would have had to know advanced trigonometry, of course, pi, square root. The earthworks themselves are laid out in a Pythagorean 3, 4, 5 triangle. And now archaeologists have admitted this, where 10 years ago when I was saying this, oh, I was attacked as a racist, everything else,
Right.
same,
Yeah.
that's all they have. But now they're saying, well, yeah, there is a Pythagorean triangle. So their theory is there was the Michelangelo of Native Americans, one guy,
Right.
built all these earthworks, which is crazy because, there's like 100, 200-year difference in some of them. So no, because they want to dismiss, like, no, there was somebody else here.
Right.
Somebody else built these. I don't, get off the racist thing,
Yeah, for real.
Tell me Native Americans knew the Pythagorean triangle, knew advanced trigonometry, could survey. Now, from Geller Hill, 3 miles away, is another earthwork on a hilltop. And that aligns with the summer solstice sunset. So now we're talking surveying over 3 miles. And we know that the Amorites, one, had advanced trigonometry. They have found tablets. You can look those up online, Babylonian tablets.
Mhm.
They're saying some of that their trigonometry was more advanced than ours. But they were also surveying because people were buying land. And if you're buying land, you have to know surveying.
Right. Right.
Surveyors. So they were giants. We got that. They were surveying, got that. Advanced trigonometry, pi, square root, all that. Pythagorean triangle, 1,000 years before Pythagorean, got that. All those boxes are covered. Well, who built it? Well, it's probably those guys, right?
Right.
Unless you can come up with another giant race that knew all this advanced mathematics, then that's who it is. That's where the evidence leads. Now you can say it's racist and say, no, it was Michelangelo of Native American. How about the Michelangelo of a Native American? I don't know, but it's like, no, it's just the evidence isn't there. And circles and squares and doing this mathematics is the circle represents one then the square, but it was to the ancient geometers' art, this squaring circles and equal areas was a method of what the line? It was to take the spiritual and transform it into material, spiritual to material. So they are producing ghosts, demons, something. I don't know.
Right.
But that is what, that was part of the geometer's art. And it was all in conjuring things. And it had to do with, especially having a circle, having a circumference and a square with the perimeter, and for those to match, or for the areas to match, which mathematically you can't square a circle, but you can make them equal areas.
Right.
Which
they did.
They did. They
Yeah.
did that. And on a massive scale.
That you would have to be looking down at. Yeah.
from the air. Yes. And then we get into, the apogee and perigee. It's like, all right, that's some math. I have no idea. I mean, somebody gave me the task, figure out big moon, little moon, figure out the ratio on that. First, I'm looking in what I'm holding up my thumb. You're not going to measure that. So I don't know. They had something that they did.
Yeah.
So there's mysteries, a lot of mysteries out there within these earthworks that can't be explained, definitely through modern archaeology, who's just a science of blinders. Um, Certainly not within the discussion of anything ancient America, because anything comes up that doesn't follow their paradigm is just immediately a racist, attitude, or whatever they're going to call you. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The racist card is old. I think we have moved past that. I would hope most
yeah,
people have moved past that junk by now.
yeah, I think November answered that question.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something else that stood out. I mean, outside of the mathematics and all that, the spiritual side of this is obviously moon worship, right?
Oh
These things,
yes, yes,
these things are aligning with the moon, not the sun. It seems like everything, like if you would look at uh, the Celtic traditions and all that, you would like you think sun worship. You look at the Aztecs, or I think it's the Aztecs out west. You think sun worship. These things are aligning with the moon, and
right. The moon and the sun. So you have the hinge line to May 1
yeah,
and October 31, and then you have the circle and the octagon is all lunar.
wow,
So we have both. Now, at Stonehenge, the 18.6 year lunar cycle is measured. May 1st is measured within Stonehenge. It's aligned, the gateway of the hinge. A hinge is a circular earthwork with an outer wall, interior ditch, and generally a single gateway aligned to a solar event. So the hinge is what's around the stones, and
yeah,
that's aligned to the summer solstice sunrise. So in here we have, both those elements. But you see, the Celts learned their religion from these people.
yes, yes,
So that's where that originated. So really to know more about what's going on in the Ohio Valley, you would learn more, you would do more to learn the Celtic religion. And that's what's going to line up what's going on in Ohio.
but this dates back thousands of years.
Oh yeah, we go 2500 BC, probably right around there. But it was the Amorites that was in England. They built the hinges. They built conical mounds that had ditches around them and ditches and berms. So everything we see in England, you know, mounds, earthworks are nearly identical in the Ohio Valley with hinges to solar events. And there's hinges all over England. And actually, the skull types of who they call the beaker peoples, who would be the technical term, are identical to those in the Ohio Valley. High vaulted, big eyes, some protruding brow ridge, some having more of an archaic slope skull, protruding brow ridge, double rows of teeth,
Hmm.
some of those things. So skull types match the Ohio Valley and those found in England. They're identical and they are kind of odd. It's an odd looking skeleton. It's not modern. I propose in my newest book that we're not talking about a race of men. We're talking about a species, a
Okay.
different species of man, which would be more of your biblical tale of Genesis 6:4, when the sons of God saw daughters of men, giants were born. So this is a genetic manipulation. And so now we have not a modern Homo sapien as we know it, but we have a different species of man, somewhat akin to is it Florence's where they found the little skeletons
Yep.
and they say, no, this is a different species.
Right.
That's what the giants are as well. And we're talking, so we're not going to get into race. We're going to get into species.
Wow. Wow. So these are the Nephilim. These mounds are constructed by the Nephilim and their
Yes.
offspring.
Yes. Yes. And I just differentiate. All right, this is a Nephilim site. This
Right.
is so yeah.
Man, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, wow. Okay. You're blowing my mind, man. Yeah, I know that there are stories of, now I say stories very loosely. I'm pretty sure it's been known fact that the Smithsonian hides these giant bones when they are unearthed, right? When they're discovered. Um, well, let's just sticking with sticking with the Amorites in England. How did they um how did they cross the pond? How did they get over here to America? Um, were they just did they scatter after, like a Babylonian scattering? Did they cross over some kind of land bridge? Did they what's the theory?
Well, one is not that hard. I mean, certainly they had seaworthy vessels back then, and the most natural route was them to island hop. So going north of England into the Orkneys, but there's a series of islands going north out of England, and then what is it? Iceland, and then
Mm-hmm.
hop over to Greenland, and then from Greenland over to over to North America.
Wow.
So it's not shooting all the way across. You could island hop
Right.
to get over there. But what brought them originally to England is the tin mines. It was the Bronze Age. So you needed copper, you needed tin. Now, another name for the Anak, which is a Hebrew word for giant,
Mm-hmm.
is tin, not number 10, tin the metal. And in Isle St. Royal, starting around 2500 BC, they started mining copper out of there. They mined 50, well, there's 50,000 tons of copper that's missing that was mined out of Isle Royal in Lake Superior. There's no account for it. One scientist said it would have taken 10,000 men working 1,000 years to mine all that copper. Well, where is it?
Right.
It's not here. It's not in burial mounds. There's no, vast tomb of copper anywhere. It's 50,000 tons.
Right.
It's gone. Well, somebody got it and took it somewhere else if it's not here. So it was them. They were shipping this stuff. It was the Bronze Age. That's what you needed. You needed good copper. And there were copper mines. There's some copper in Levant, there's some through, in Spain, but a lot of that copper was dirty. Means you had to cook it. You had to cook it down, get the impurities out of it, opposed to Isle Royal copper is 99.9% pure, with the only impurity is specks of silver. You could pick a piece off the ground,
Wow.
and you could melt it down and it'd be ready to go, or ready to make that. Now, there have been cases where they found molds, weapon molds, New York, that area where they were melting it. They like to keep that hush hush because that doesn't follow the paradigm, but there are cases where they found molds. So they were using it sparingly, and people say, well, why wouldn't they use bronze if they were making bronze? It's like, now you don't understand how it works. Why would you need bronze if your enemy has stone?
Right.
You need
Good point.
copper.
Yeah.
So, and they're not going to reveal technology when technology isn't needed. No, copper's fine.
Yeah.
Now, of those copper weapons that you'll find with the copper culture, you're going to see tang daggers. That's where they have a midrib going down the middle. And more importantly, is they went from a spear that had a tang on it. So a long, piece of metal coming out of the, you know, blade.
Right.
They switched from that around 1500 BC in the Levant. They switched from tangs to sockets. That happens at the same time here. Well, now, socket was not only a huge improvement in weapons technology, but it revolutionized farming. So much today is like if you're going to have a garden, what are you going to have? You're going to have a hoe, and what's it going to be attached? With a socket and
Right.
a shovel, socket. We're still using that technology. Back then, it revolutionized farming, but it also revolutionized weapons.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they even have rivets on the sockets where you could even attach them more with a rivet. You find that over in Manoa and, Levant, in that area. And now it shows up here. So we have the same weapons technology over there and over here. They're just using, here copper, over there bronze, but that switch from the tang to the socket, there's no way that's happening independently here.
Right. Right. And there's also what other I think it was copper mines in Minnesota around the same time period. That they found out that those had been mined too.
Yeah, yeah, there were probably periphery. Yeah, and I know Minnesota was real big in redstone. Well, you can see some artifacts in the Ohio Valley made of redstone. These beautiful pipes, platform pipes, um, made out of redstone. I mean, very exquisite. Made out of birds or different animals, and they're just perfect.
Yeah.
To think somebody's there just sanding down stone and to be that perfect about it. But yeah, beautiful. That was very desirable in the Ohio Valley.
Man. So we have the evidence that the Amorites, um, or the Nephilim, are here in America. That there's this mass cover up. That we have evidence still today. Like I said, 40 miles from my house is the Creel Mound, in Charleston. Now I had heard, and I know they give credit here officially to what they call the Adena people and the Hopewell and the mound builders. Um, is that just is that all just a cover up? Because there's no connection. Like there's no tribal people who are the mound builders. That's like such a generic name. And the
No,
Adena people, it's just
no, there were Amorites. So you had Amorites, they were building what they were building, and the surveying, the geometrics, and the sacred geometry, and the math, and all that. Yeah, that's all them.
yeah.
And then there is evidence that the Dakota Sioux were probably the indigenous population in the Ohio Valley, and they intermarried with the Amorites. It's interesting that, one of those tribes was the Mandan. And when George Catlin went out there and visited with them, they had not had contact with Europeans, but he said there were women with blonde hair, red hair, blue eyes, green eyes,
Wow.
and they, for all respects, he said, looked European. Now, you cannot have red hair, blonde hair, green eyes, blue eyes, and both your mother and your father carry that gene. So that's the only way that happened. So that was something through their bloodline that had gone back a ways for them, to be carrying that recessive gene just for that to have happened. So that's not something where a European 50 years earlier came in there and changed the whole genetic makeup of a whole tribe of Native Americans. That didn't happen.
Right.
It's not Maddox. I get so tired of hearing about Maddox. Wasn't him. It wasn't some priest came over here and, was having sex with all the Native Americans and changing their gene pool. This was over, hundreds, thousands of years, probably 1,000 years that they were intermingling together. So, I mean, there is some evidence, periphery evidence, like, well, where did these men get it? But it was the Dakota story. It's their tribal history that they dwelt in the Ohio Valley at one time. I'd say, okay, yeah, I believe that. I don't think this was completely void Native American. So they were there. And, we were just talking about the pipes,
Mhm.
these platform pipes that you find in Ohio Valley. The Dakota Sioux were making those same platform pipes right up into historic times. You can look at a platform pipe from the 1800s and one from 200 AD, and there's not a whole lot of difference.
Wow. So
So
what?
there's,
I'm sorry, but why the cover up? Do you think? I have my idea as to why the cover up, but what's your take on that? Why would the Smithsonian hide this? Why would these other just mainstream historians try to hide something like this?
it was in the 1850s, 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. It was Cyrus. I think that Cyrus is his last name. Thomas Cyrus, maybe, of the Smithsonian, because there was all of these theories in the Ohio Valley that Native Americans didn't build these, because they were
Hmm.
so geometric and all that. And he deemed that to be racist and told the agents, from now on, everything's Native American. I don't care what you find. If you find something contradicts that, destroy it. This is our line, Native American. And anything that refutes it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
And now that has been, that mantle was passed on to universities, turn of the century, and universities are still carrying that baton. Anything other than Native American is racist. I don't care how much evidence you produce. It's a Native American and you're a racist.
Yeah.
Conversation's over.
Wow. Were they just atheists? Is that what it is? Like they didn't want it to be proven that it's biblical that these guys.
I believe that had something to do with it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, the Mormon faith in the 1840s or whatever is born on migrations of Mormons coming over here from the Levant. And I've talked to Mormons like, I'll. Agree with that.
Right.
I'll say if there were Mormons, they were like, it would be like saying the Pilgrims were Dutch
Right.
because they took a Dutch ship. Like, yeah, they might have come over here, done their thing. They could have been on board. There might have been some different peoples from other places. So, but I said, I can give you the historical precedent where that happened and evidence that that did happen. There were people coming over here. I don't think the Mormons were mound builders, but there is evidence that, they certainly could have come over here. So here's an analogy of like Newark. Now, let's say you go to southern Germany and you see Roman ruins. And you would say, well, those are Roman ruins. So a German archaeologist would say, like, what do you mean they're Roman? What do you think that the Germans were too stupid to build that? And I'd say, well, no, that Germans just didn't build things like that. Like, well, no, you're being racist. You're saying this is Roman, but it's in Germany. If it's in Germany, Germans must have built it.
Right.
So the Ohio earthworks is like, well, they're in Ohio and the Shawnee were here. The
Yep.
Shawnee now take the Serpent Mound. Well, show me where in the religious canon of the Shawnee Algonquins where the serpent is prevalent. It's not.
And
Show me a Shawnee that was a mound builder. They're not. They didn't.
right.
But they were there last.
Right.
Now all the mounds are Shawnee mounds. That's how ridiculous it is.
And you mentioned Serpent Mound and Shawnee. Shawnee, as far as I know, they used this area there were some camps here. There's some stories here of Native American history, but not much because they use this primarily as a hunting ground
Yes.
where I'm at. But there was a serpent mound here in Logan, West Virginia. It's near Holden. It's near a little community called Cow Creek. Um, that I told you off air. A few buddies of mine and I went to this place. We got the location from a local historian loosely. Um, there was an article, I think it was in the 60s, in our local newspaper that talked about someone had discovered this serpent like mound on a ridge there, on a mountain ridge. And it looked very rudimentary compared to like
Yeah.
Ohio. It looked like stacked rocks that kind of worked in with the natural landscape, but it made this serpentine figure. And my buddies and I, we decided we were going to go up there and check it out.
Was it on the
Um,
top or was it on the side by chance?
it's on the top.
Okay.
It's on the top. I have a video actually of us walking the spine of this thing, and I got a few pictures of it. And like I said, I'll send you an email of those pictures, and I'll try to drop you a GPS so maybe you can look at it. But when my friend Josh, he messaged this local historian. He was part of like the local club here or whatever, this historian society. He started asking questions about it. They kicked Josh off of the group page. Like they didn't want to talk about it. We still don't really know what was up with all that, but we got together and we went out there and we found this thing. It was interesting because there's a cell phone tower built right next to it. So it was like,
I, I know that. I never was able to, but now it could be a coincidence because there was one, it was Cattlesburg or something, just over the Ohio River. And that's right by a cell phone tower.
really?
But that's not Logan County. That's something new. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be happy to send you everything I have about it.
Yeah.
And I'll get a hold of my buddies because they may have more information on it than what I have saved to my phone. But we get out there and we had this big bright idea that we were going to, you know, pray some psalms in that area. Um, we're all very faithful, so we wanted to pray some psalms over it and hang out there and see what's up. There was a kind of like a cutout that looked almost like a pedestal shaped into the stone. Um, that looked like maybe something had been placed there or whatever. But we uh, we anointed the area, we prayed over the area, we claimed it in the name of Jesus. We read these psalms, and you get coyotes howling, you get owls, real creepy. Felt real creepy. It was right at the edge of dark, and it was almost like a response. It was what it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
Because we're all in that spiritual mindset. And we come back home, and that night I woke up 3 different times with spiders crawling across my neck. I've never had anything like that happen to me before in my life, but three
Oh,
separate occasions I woke up with these things crawling on me. It's like really eerie, real funky. And uh, shortly thereafter, the group disbanded. There was some disagreements. I'm not going to get into all that. That's their business. But things kind of fell apart. Like there was this turmoil that come up out of this, and it felt like this location had a presence there. You know what I mean? Like,
oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
um, I think that some of these, and it's awesome that you have taken the time to visit other locations and found these paranormal connections to these sites, because I full heartedly believe that something went on in that mountain, and there's something there. There's something we never revisited. It's been 2 years. It was like October 22 when we went in there. Um, but it feels to me like it has a slight connection to some of the stuff you're talking about in your new book, this ancient
Right.
America, the dark side, you know?
And if you were there around dark, that seems to be the magic time. That seems like when things start happening,
Yeah.
right towards the end of day. If you get to a site late, and I call these sites, and L.A. Marzulli, we'd get a sites, and both come up. We say the site's charged. Yeah, yeah, this is charged. Not all sites. Some sites, like this is charged. So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Charged.
That's a good
There's
word for
something.
it.
There's something different. Can't put your finger on. Not necessarily good. Not necessarily evil. Just something's charged. There's an energy there. Probably is going to be bad
Right.
energy.
Right.
You know, in the book of Enoch, says of the giants, your spirits will be earthbound. So you see, a burial mound is a portal. It connects the living with the dead. There are portals for the dead because the dead are earthbound. They're here. They're not in Valhalla. They're not in heaven. They're here
Right.
forever. They're here. So where
Right.
you went, they were there. Those spirits, they were there. So when you go to a Nephilim site, it's charged and they're probably there. And that's from the book of Enoch, which explains it, that they're earthbound spirits.
Yeah. That makes total sense to me. But I look at things from a very supernatural perspective. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, but that's what we felt too. We felt like there's some kind of um. Well, we just use it out of it may be out of ignorance that we use the term, but it was almost like a principality. Like there was something that had claimed dominion there. Something was placed there,
Yeah, exactly.
and
There's no real name for it.
right,
Dominion, something. There's just something.
right,
And feel it. Something's there.
yeah.
So yeah, we say charge, a principality. There's something there. There's something there.
Mm. Well, if you don't mind sharing, um, are there any accounts that stood out to you in your new book that you would like to talk about that would connect?
Um, yeah, trying to, you know, um, there was one case where these people, this was in Mansfield, Ohio. I don't know why Mansfield, Ohio was haunted. I drive, sometimes I go 30 across Ohio and I'll drop south on 13 down to Newark, and you have to go through Mansfield. And I just know I've driven through there at night. It's just the place just gives you the heebie-jeebies. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know why. It's just a town. You're driving any other, but you just stop and what's with this place? And so I interview this guy, and he turns on a road, which I looked. It's like, oh, there's mounds everywhere around there. And they lived on a farm, and there was a mound across the street. And I guess there was a giant skeleton in that mound. So they have that past. And this guy, and he turns out there was cryptids that he said it was like a lizard. It's gray skin, and it had shovels for arms or feet or paws or whatever, but it was like shovels sticking way out. Sharp teeth, gray. He said you could see the veins in it, like it had no hair. It was just like gray,
right.
veiny, sharp teeth. These, shovel, reptile or whatever arms on it. So very strange. He drew it. It's in the book.
Wow.
It's actually on the back cover of the book. There's a little picture there. It's just the same. And so I'm interviewing this guy on Messenger. Turns out to be pretty good. All of a sudden, mom here. Mom steps in. Mom's in the conversation. Mom here. Now look, this is what went on. We were in this house. There was a mound. There were giants. There's UFOs come through here. There's shadow people that come through here. There's disembodied voices. Like we've seen it all. It's all here. Like, wow. All right. So I'm talking to this guy. Mom steps in. She's like, "Oh yeah, my grandparents, they saw it. We saw it. It's just
Wow.
part of life around here." But it's like, wow. I mean, everything. I mean, just everything. Voices and the whole 9 yards of paranormal activity. And I was at Fort Hill, which is Highland County. It's just a little north of the Serpent, but it is a stone wall that goes all the way around this top. There's 33 gateways. 33.
Interesting.
Yeah. 33 gateways, and the stone wall undulates like a big serpent. And it gets over to the head on one end of it, and it's two serpent heads coming together. And then that's the gateway going into this thing. And that's not there's no trail going up there. You got to go down the hill. It's really crazy about Fort Hill. There's probably so many people that walk around the perimeter of the hill and never actually see the earth, the stonework on top.
Yeah.
Got to go around to the left. You got to go up this hill. That'll take you up to this gateway. So, I'm doing mounds, and I went to a lot of sites, but understand, when you're photographing, going to 700 sites and there is something there, it's go up, photograph, photograph, photograph. Back then too, you had a memory card for your camera. It was like 64 megabytes.
Right.
You had to have been somewhat judicious on your photo taking. So, you go up, get your photos, go down. Now, this is like the third time that I'd been up there. You got to go in the winter to see it. Got to see when all the foliage is dead. But I'm up there by the gateway, got my shots, like, all right, I'm getting ready to go. I look over and I see this black mass, about 8 foot, and it's moving from right to left towards the stone wall. So it's on the outside of this serpentine stone wall, and it's moving across. I'm looking at it, and it goes behind a tree, but the tree's diameter was much less than this big figure. But when it got to the tree, it just disappeared.
Hmm.
And I'm like looking at that, and I'm like just glaring at this tree. It's like, I know I just saw something go by, Matt.
Right.
And then it shot out behind the tree, heading towards the stone serpentine wall again. And just before it got there, there was a relatively small tree. Got to that tree, it disappeared behind that. And I'm like, all right, I gotta go. I gotta get out of here. I don't know if I was really terrified, scared, but like I need to go. I'm up here by myself. All right, I gotta go. So I went down. It was just an experience. It wasn't any book or anything. And then I interviewed a guy who was up there with a friend of his. And I asked him, where were you? And it's like, well, we were, at the gateway. I go, all right, they're on the right side. Yeah, we're over there, right, closest to downhill where you go to where your car. Yeah, we're there. I go, why were you there? So I felt safe there.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah. That's why yeah, I was there for the same reason. What did you see? Black mass, 8 foot. Now he didn't talk about going behind trees. So they saw this thing, got scared. Friend saw it, but got to the bottom of the hill. Said, we got in the car. He goes, I didn't want to say anything. I asked my friend, what did you see? Black mass, big. Friend said, was it Bigfoot? And I was like, well, I don't know. It was black mass. It wasn't hairy or anything else. It was black.
Right.
He just saw something big, Bigfoot people, everything's Bigfoot. Um, he said, well, he wanted his friend's story just because he wanted to corroborate that, just what he saw, because he thought, well, maybe I saw something. Like now his friend saw the exact same thing. He said, I was really scared. He goes, I really wanted to get out of there because my friend was a mess.
Hmm.
He was terrified. He said it stuck with him for a while. He couldn't get over it. And like, yeah, it's like, all right. I said, well, you saw the exact same I did at the exact same place, this black mass. So now that's an Edina. That's Nephilim architecture up there. And then 33. But you have the serpent mound. Most people don't realize there's three bends in the body. One, it's the solar, it's aligned to the summer solstice sunset.
Right.
There's three bends in the body. The coils three times, but it's pointed to um, a bend or a confluence. The creek splits. So one here, one there. So that gives you three. So one splits into two. That gives you three. So it's 333.
Wow.
What's interesting is there's a serpent mound in Scotland, built the same way as a stone core, built as exactly the same. And that serpent is pointing towards three peaks. So this one's pointing at the confluence, so three creeks, and that's pointing to three peaks.
Yeah.
Now, is that coincidence? Probably not. Now, there was in the Nephilim series, Marzulli interviewed this guy or had this guy. It was really good. They animated it. This guy, I don't know why he was on the Serpent Mound. It was winter. He's up there, and not supposed to walk on it. I've never walked on it, but something thumped him, just knocked him down,
Really?
and wouldn't let him up. He was down there for a while. He sat down for like an hour, down there praying,
I
praying to
bet.
God, praying to God, let me up. Whatever it is, let him let go of me, and knocked him out. So eventually, that thing let him up. But it was winter, snowing. This guy's in the snow. Something just thumped him, just
Wow.
knocked him. Didn't knock him out, knocked him down, wouldn't let him up.
Held him down.
And there was some other footage. I mean, this was footage. It was a group of people at the Serpent Mound, and this lady just gets cold cocked. Bam. And she just goes down. I mean, she's standing there just bam, knocked out there at the Serpent Mound. And somebody contacted me. I mean, this is recently, wasn't in the book, but he said that tail is a vortex. All right. Well, it just curls around.
Right.
All right. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that was their purpose. Most people don't realize that if you go to the bottom of the hill, go down, there is a stone pillar that used to be in that egg. It's down at the bottom of the thing. You can see it.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, it's more of a megalithic thing going on there with that stone pillar. I don't know if they were sacrificing people, what they were doing there. There is evidence of sacrifice. They have different burial mounds there in Ohio where they're in a spoke position.
Hmm.
So all their heads will be, and they'll all be radiating out of a central, usually it's like a fire.
Yep.
And then some of the skeletons will have no heads. So like maybe eight skeletons, three of them won't have heads. And
I
I
didn't
saw
know that.
one didn't have a head, but it was on his chest, but they removed his head. So I don't know what that might have been a ritual sacrifice, and then he just was buried. Now you'd say, well, to serve them in the afterlife, it's like, well, they're staying here, so whatever it is, it's just in tow here
Right.
to haunt people. So there is evidence of that they were sacrificing. But the Serpent Mount, the last time I was there, man, there's all these witches going there. you'll go and you hear all these witches, chanting some sort of mumbo jumbo,
Yeah.
but it is a little offsetting.
Oh, for sure.
You're there and it's like, what are they conjuring up, you know?
Right.
So yeah. Uh, I think I've been there twice now. There were witches. And it was miserable weather too, just awful. You know,
Are,
I go in the wintertime when nobody's there and you can see stuff. And I mean, dog, there's witches there chanting. Like, well, those like Wiccan, I mean, those
yeah.
are all right. They're just into earth energies and they would be into Beltane and Zimmerman, stuff like that. But they're probably harmless. But then there's the other witches. That's the demon witches. Well, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're good witch or bad witches.
Are they open about it? Or that they're
No,
just
I
like,
didn't talk. No, we didn't talk to them because they were engaged in this chant. I mean, they were completely unapproachable. They were like busy doing their things. Yeah. So well, it'll be the next chapter of Ancient Paranormal, places to go,
yes.
and you go into charge sites.
Yeah. Ancient Paranormal. And this is going to be like a video series.
Well, I don't know. We're gonna go and we're gonna shoot, and oh my gosh, I bought every piece of paranormal equipment I could get my hands on. I've got an SLS for the stick figures because I was with Newark Paranormal and we were at Geller Hill. That's where the whole isosceles triangle comes together. It's like an energy vortex up there. That's where this pyramid, emanates from. And there was one of the stick figures up there. So like, okay, I mean, that was some evidence we had. And then we were at Glenford Fort, which we're going to be going to this weekend. And I always told people, I said, the most haunted place I ever went was Glenford Fort. Now, this, like Fort Hill, was surrounded by a 5-foot stone wall. And then there's a stone mound in the middle, or not in the middle, it's towards one end, maybe 15-foot stone mound in the middle or within this enclosure. And, I would be up there by myself. Man, this, you know, let's just let's get this done. Find remnants of the stone wall, um, and get your photos. And I was just ready to go, ready to get out of there. But I was up there. I was up there with, you know, some other people, and it was kind of distracting. But I was with New York Paranormal, and we kind of branched off. But we got on the other side of the wall, and they picked up two or three of those stick figures in the
Really?
woods. Yeah, because I was, that they were there on my, behalf. Come to this place, see what you can get. Well, I first contacted them, and they were up at Geller Hill during the summer, and they flipped out. They said there was a 40-degree temperature change. It went from 82 to 42.
Wow.
They said, no, wasn't a storm, wasn't rain. It just got cold. And they said, no, we had, gauges, temperature readings, and it was like 42 degrees. It went from like 82 to 42 in like a second.
That's insane. That won't happen naturally.
No,
you know,
no,
you know what I
no,
mean? Hey,
no.
were these stick figures, were they like 8 foot tall or
Yeah, the one was big. And then the
that's what I was
ones
thinking.
in the woods really couldn't tell because they were a little ways away and there was nothing to judge it with because they were in the trees
Yeah.
and maybe, I don't know, 15 foot away from us. And so really couldn't judge those, but the one at Geller was big. So, I had those sites under my belt and I said, we may have something. We need to go collect this evidence. So got an SLS, got a RIM pod, I got a voice recorder uh, with 179 languages,
Wow.
and Hebrew is what I want.
Right.
And so if they're speaking Hebrew, we're going to be able to pick up on it. Because when we did our bird dog 2 weeks ago, we did a bird dog just to go, let's see. I really hadn't been out with Jennifer. Jennifer Lee, she's a medium and a Reiki master. And so, like, all right, let's see what she does. And, I know I'm open, if something's going to happen. I always tell people, it's like, yeah, you want to go ghost hunting? Just stand by me. I don't need a REM pod or that. Something, but I got to, something will happen. I'll see it. And because I've had ghosts in my life, so I've had more my share of experiences, not to do with mounts, but just other. So yeah, so we uh, got a REM pod, got the SLS, got the voice recorder, and then yeah, I was working on my questions when we're there, like est, who are you? Mayafa est, where are you from? And etum Nephilim.
What?
Are you are you Nephilim in Hebrew?
Yes.
Etum Nephilim. So I'm asking questions when I go to these sites. I'll be asking questions in Hebrew because I was with Newark Paranormal and we were at the Henge and they have an ovulus and it's spitting out words. And I'm thinking, why would they be spitting out English words? I don't speak English. And then when I just watch the ghost shows, it's like, we believe that spirits can manipulate words in this box. Like, really? How do they do that? Yeah. All right. So anyway, all right. I'm not using this. And it
Right.
was $500.
Whoa.
Enough money in the REM pod was expensive. I think that was like 500, 500.
Goodness gracious.
But I thought, well, it's non-biased, sending out an electromagnetic field for not real big. And if something gets in that, that'll thing will go off. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not, you see those ovuluses on show and it'd be like, rake. Dude, we were just in the garage and you were talking about a rake.
Right.
Be a
Right.
ghost. Like, oh, because see, I mean, a random word, you can associate that
Yeah.
somehow
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in the whole realm of where you're at or the house or stove or curtain or whatever. It's like, oh, curtain. We were just talking about curtains. But then it's like, well, I don't why would these guys be talking about curtains?
Right.
They're 2,000-year-old giants.
Right.
So not gonna do that. But I got a Sam and Colby. Um, what's the thing that goes through the radio channels?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
A voice box.
Yeah.
Well, there's people that get like $500 for those. My Sam and Colby, um, which actually has the same image as my book. It's on my voice box, but it's a little handheld. But it goes through the radio station. And it was like $20.
There you go.
And the only thing I could see difference from the $20 one to like the ones that were $300 and $400 was a what $380 really was the difference.
Yeah.
Well, it's scanning these radio waves like, all right, let's do it. Let's just see.
Yeah, man.
Maybe not. We, out $20. So, really gonna go in and just throw it up against the wall and see what sticks when we're
Yeah.
first getting started. So got a couple cameras and I'm just gonna film everything. We were at a site on our bird dog, we were at a stone mound. Stone mounds are a little scary. A lot of giants in stone mounds. Find a stone mound, there's energy coming out of it, more so than a burial mound. I don't know why. Um, it must be the stones. their conductivity, something opposed to
Something.
Earth, holds energy different, something. Um, we had a stone mound, and Jennifer asked a few questions, and it was 5 syllables. Unlegible.
Hmm.
That's not English.
Mm-mm.
It's somebody speaking. It's not English though, but it sounded more Hebrew kind of a bit. So that's why I bought that translator. Like, well, look, if they're not going to speak in English, they're going to be talking another language. We got to be able to decipher this. So we'll see. It's kind of interesting. And I don't think anyone else has thought to do that. Of course, boy, the paranormal world has just gotten so
Oh yeah.
saturated, diluted with just people making everything up.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I was just, for some reason, because I got my voice recorded from Sam and Colby, it's like, I want to watch these guys. And they were at the Felicia house there in Iowa, one where the whole family was brutally axed to death. But, part of their thing was that they had like the flashlight. And I just want to scream when they break out the flashlight.
I know.
We're going to turn this thing just where it's minusculely not on. And then over time, it will turn on. And we're just hoping it's going to turn on right after we ask a question.
Yeah, while we record it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is going to turn on.
Yeah.
It's just what's your timing, you know,
Man,
and, stuff like that. Like,
there's something I want to try. Um, because I think there's a connection between Bigfoot and the Nephilim. I've I've done shows about it several times, but I legitimately I've done some research and I've talked to some people, and some of it's anecdotal, some of it is subjective, but regardless, I've landed here after doing this show for almost 5 years now that I think there's a connection, and there's something I've been wanting to try, and I would love it if you gave it a shot if you could, because it ties in. Um, I'm wanting to go to like a location that's supposed to have this Bigfoot activity, but it would work just as well in a paranormal field. What would happen if you go out there and you blow a shofar? Would like the ram horn? Would that possibly trigger one of these Nephilim to respond? Would you get a shout? Would you get hopefully not attacked? You know what I mean? But um, would something that would be relatable to them?
no,
No.
I don't think so. I'd trigger me. I had to hear that. Man, those things are loud.
Yeah.
Well, now I'll tell you what's interesting is uh, there was a guy, God, this is probably 10 years ago at least. Um, there's a place called Yellow Springs in Ohio, and I've always thought there's something going on there. There's a spring, it's just blood red. I call it Blood Spring. Just different things going on there. It's in this deep cavern, all stone around us. And he was called it, what was it? Harmonic? Oh, harmonic something. Here's what he was doing. He said he was there at Yellow Springs. He said there's a mound up there. He says, telling me, he says, if you shoot a tone into a mound, it'll repeat that tone. I said, now you're telling me, he said, well, yeah, I would shoot a tone for like 3 seconds into the mound, like kind of aim it that way, turn it off. And he said it was duplicating that sound back at. Like, okay, I'm not sure if the guy's pulling my leg or, but he
Right.
seemed serious about it, kind of being all scientific about, harmonic resonance, I think is the way he termed that.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's interesting. But, didn't say he saw ghosts, didn't say anything. He was just saying, yeah, if you do that. And I said, well, that's interesting. Have you done it anywhere else? No, I just did it right there. All right. So that's somewhat of what you're talking.
Right.
So, yes, possibly noise, a little more subtle than blaring,
A little bit.
you know, knocking windows out.
Right.
Uh, something more subtle, yet, yeah, I think there could be something to that.
That's
I
something.
don't know. I don't know if we have the capability of doing that or not.
Yeah.
Possibly
Yeah. I was just curious. It's like, would the entity itself, you know,
respond to sound.
respond to a sound like
Yes.
that?
Yeah. Well, that would be an interesting experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a thought. You know what I mean? That's like, because I mean, if you're trying to relate, uh, or trying to provoke even something that ancient, to do something that it would recognize, maybe,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. But not provoke. I don't want to provoke anything.
right.
Not going to be Zach Bagan.
Oh my gosh, that
That's
guy.
being a complete jerk,
Yeah.
not only to demons, but to his friends.
Yeah. I'm
And
convinced
now,
he's got to be demonized by this point. Like,
well, he gets possessed every week now
right.
on his shows. I had to stop watching.
Yeah, I haven't watched that
I was,
in 8 years
I
probably.
was, I was all about it at the beginning. And then I thought it was better when they got rid of Nick Groff because Nick Groff would always see ghosts off camera.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be like, wow, I just saw a head that way off camera.
Yeah, right.
Man.
Yeah.
And see, ghosts are attracted to some people. They're like lights. And either you're a light or you're not.
Mm.
Different ghost hunter shows, Ghost Hunters was the first to come out.
Yeah. I
And
loved
there
that
were
show
some of the,
initially.
yeah, because there was times they would go just debunk everything.
Yep.
I remember a young couple, well, this is happening. Well, you're creating a draft in your house. So you basically have low pressure, high pressure. That could even open up your cabinets, but definitely slam doors, this and that. Went through and debunked everything.
Yep.
And that's what the show was.
Yep.
I thought, that's good. Not every time you're in a 100-year-old home and it creaks is a ghost. Old
Right.
homes creak.
Yeah.
So yeah, give it a break, and stick with, what you have. But now that's not the case. So you want to get that reaction, of everybody being scared over nothing. Like the Conjuring House. I don't know if you saw that was Sam and Colby with uh Toe Knocker and Alphabet Girl.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh my gosh. This is Jason Hawes' daughter. She got up with this guy. What he does is now then she grabs his hands and then she goes A, B, C, D, knock. He knocks his toe. Now people there think that's a ghost. Knock it.
Right.
One knock. One knock, yes. Two knocks, no. So D. Da da da. O. O's it. R. Doris. Doris Fleming. Well, see, they've looked up everybody. When you go to the Conjuring House, you have to put information down. They research your family.
Wow.
They know your grandmother's name was Doris Fleming.
Yep.
And they'll go through Doris Fleming, and somebody will be like, that's my grandmother. How would you know if she's not a ghost? Well, they were debunked.
Yep.
But like, I don't know, Sam Covey are crying and like, oh, it's grandma coming through. It's like, no, it's just the guy's knocking his toe.
Wow. That's
They
crazy.
got a, they got away with it though. And there's still people now. It's like watch John Wolf on YouTube if you haven't. He goes through these shows and debunks them.
Really?
And the biggest one that he went through top to bottom was Bob Mackey's.
The gateway to hell?
Yep. That woman was killed miles away. This happened. This never happened. There never was this dancer named Jolene or whatever her name was. There never was a Randall crooner. His wife didn't lose the baby or she didn't lose the baby because she never existed. It was all made up because there was a guy who wrote a book. And then the drunken caretaker, Lawson, I think his name is, he was with the guy writing the book. He narrated all this stuff. Like, well, then this happened. Then the writer, embellished all of it for this story. Like Carl Lawson found her diary, but that didn't make any sense. It was in his handwriting. But, just Wolf just goes through and just that didn't happen. This didn't happen. This didn't happen. You know, John Randall was the crooner's name, which just happened to be the guy who owns it was Randall was his middle name. Well, how could that be if it wasn't just divine providence that he ended up there and had the same name? No, it's like Carl made his name up because he saw it on a check or something that his middle name was Randall. And it was like, wow, what a great way to incorporate this guy into our
Man,
thing. That was just 15 minutes of fame to come up with this big hoax
that's so dirty.
about all this. But then you're down, you watch Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures, and they're down there. Jack's yelling at demons that don't exist, and they have the well, the portal to hell. And no, it's just an old drain. I think it was used as a slaughterhouse for a while. And they were probably throwing, cow blood down it because it ran. There's a drain right to the creek there.
Yeah.
So, and I was a believer in that.
Yeah,
I
man.
watched those shows like, wow, we got to go to Bob Mackey's. That's crazy.
Yeah.
A decapitated woman and satanic rituals and all this other stuff. And it's like, nah, it's all a hoax.
Man.
So they tore it down. So I posted on this page. Well, they tore the building down. Well, that's going to open up a whole new portal.
Right.
These people writing in, hey, you're not getting rid of this haunting by tearing that building down. So I made a comment. I said, well, this has all been debunked. It's all made up. It's all a guy writing. So it all is. It's all made up. Somebody just trying to make money. Oh, just attack. No, it's all real. That all happened. Like, well, what's somebody else's opinion? You might change, but they're not going to change their mind. They believe. They believe.
Yeah, they want to.
They want to believe.
Yeah.
It's people are still going to go to Bob Mackey, still going to go to an empty lot
Yeah.
and still have the same experience.
Yeah.
Anything that happens out of the ordinary is going to be paranormal.
Yeah.
So that's just where they're at. But that's where, these shows are a lot of them. The only thing I watch and I really can't say is The Dead Files, Amy Allen.
Yeah.
And, she does her thing. He's coming up with the story and it all kind of comes together at the end. And I've seen him talk about, like, yeah, she freaked me out. When we first started, I was freaked out. Like, yeah, she's like, I didn't know what to think of it. Like, all right, that's real. He's a cop.
Right.
And he still says, nah, I don't believe ghosts. Like, and she says, yeah, he's not open to ghosts. Like, would they ever haunt Steve DeShivy? She said, no. Why would they? He's not open. Why would they bother? Yeah. And see, that's the same way with the ghost hunters too. Either you're open or you're not. And if you're not, you can ghost hunt all you want. Nothing probably is going to happen.
Right.
Opposed to
Right.
me, like, oh, something's around, I'm going to see it. And now we expand that to UFOs. So yeah, I'm going with Jennifer Lee. We go to these sites. She's open. Now, see, a Reiki Meister can move spirits on. That's their talent. Amy Allen's always talking about bring a Reiki Master in because they can contact the dead, move them along to the other plane. And so I don't know that's going to be what we're dealing with. We're dealing with Amorites,
Right.
Nephilim. So
Yeah,
we're not
they're
going to move them on anywhere.
no, they're bound.
They're bound to
Yeah.
earth. So, but she's open. We're not going to, involve in that, moving anybody along, but she's open. So, like, well, yeah, if you're going to go, that's who you want to be with.
Man,
Somebody that's that.
I love this take on it, Um I, I've never heard of anybody trying to I don't even know if you're communicating, but just pick up communication from the
Yes.
Nephilim.
Well, no, yeah, no other story. I mean, ghost hunters are going to the old folks' home that they're not using anymore.
Right.
Places that probably, might have a ghost in it, but not necessarily haunted. Because most of those people that have these sites, it's big money.
Oh yeah, man.
If you have a haunted site, you can get as much as five, seven, $800 a night for a
Right.
paranormal group of 7, 8 people. They all split it. So it's good money.
Yeah.
So everything is haunted.
Yeah.
Everything is, everything's documented, everything's haunted. This team saw this. And then people, after spending that money, they want to be scared. They want to see ghosts. Everything is paranormal. Every creek,
Yeah.
everything.
Well, they need to come to West Virginia. We got it for free.
Just cross the bridge, and you are there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah. West Virginia. I've got to get to West Virginia. I've got to hit some site there. Creel Mound, maybe that snake serpent,
Yeah.
and then something else has got to be around there.
Yeah,
Um,
there's several sites, man. In Dunbar, there's another mound, um, which is probably
no, that is haunted. The one in the park,
yeah, yeah, the
that's
one,
Mount 31.
yeah.
And the Smithsonian Institute's report, that was two giant skeletons sitting with their legs out, facing each other, arms were out, and there's a tablet in between them. That's how they're buried.
What?
And they were both described as very large by the Smithsonian. But that one is in a park. I'm thinking it was south of Creel. South, is it Shawnee Park? Something like that.
There's a yeah, there's Shawnee Reservation Park.
That's it.
Yeah.
That mountain. That gave me the creeps. I always thought I got to come back here. Now
Yeah.
I didn't feel that about Creel. I didn't get anything there.
Right.
But Mound 31 in that park, that was a little creepy. And Chester Cemetery, I think that's Ohio though. That's not because you cut. What's really weird? Anybody that's traveling, don't take the highway to Charleston or anything else. Get to the Ohio River and either take 7 or 2. Is 7 the West Virginia side, or is 2 the West Virginia side that follows the Ohio?
No, I couldn't tell you.
All right, 2 or 7. Now I know on the Ohio side, you come across, you start going down this road, follows Ohio River. There are no McDonald's, there are no burger chefs, no Applebee's, no handy dandy glasses gas stations, no Phillips 66 gas stations. There's nothing you'll ever recognize. It's all local and it's all poor.
Yeah.
The movie, the Jodie Foster movie, I just watched that, Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah. Yeah.
when she's in West Virginia and just kind of that dark, dreary, you know, no place you would want to live.
Right.
That's it. That's going down too. Because see, there's The Ohio River carved out a little bit of land before you hit the hills, but it's not very, very wide. Maybe a couple blocks. Then you hit the hills, and then there'll be houses up on those hills. You will not pass a house and be like, wouldn't that be a nice place to live? Overlooking the Ohio River. No, that doesn't exist. Oh, look at their home. That's a beautiful home. No, it's all built 19 turn of the century, 1910,
Yep.
20s maybe. I mean, it's all over 100 years old, but nothing was ever built lavish. There's no money there. If
Right.
there was money there, McDonald's would make a restaurant. Most
Yeah.
people don't have, but it's not. It's just really where you really feel like, man, I don't even want to stop for gas because I'm like, I'm not from around here.
Right.
They'd probably ask that. You're not from around here, are you? No. Good. They'll just be missing. One of those people that just go missing.
You be
Or they find me. Last known, yeah. He was going to Ohio in that photograph Mounds. Could have been anywhere. So yeah, it's but it's really something to experience that.
Yeah, man.
And it's an interesting part of the country. But
It
man,
is.
haunted. Just like man, whether Bellevue, something. I know there's paranormal shows go there. There's like Bellevue. Go to any town, and I'm sure
Yeah.
people have paranormal experiences through there.
Oh yeah. And it is every person you talk to around here. Like I have this little thing I do every year. I'm a teacher. I teach at the local high school. And
Okay.
just for like a fun episode each year, I have my students that are open enough to talk about it. I keep their name anonymous. I don't post it to YouTube, so there's no video. But I just do student stories. And every year consistently, I have, like out of 100 kids, I'll have 10% that want to come on the show and talk because they have stories about their house, like these crazy haunted things happen in their house, or these shadows in the woods, or their
Oh,
their grandmother was possessed and had to have an exorcism or deliverance service at their home. It's just everywhere, and that's the ones that want to talk. There's also just as many that, yeah, I had something happen, but don't you record me, and they'll share. But it is so common here that it's just like, it's not like, do you believe in this? It's like, what happened? You know what I mean? It's not a if, but what around here, man. And
yeah.
yeah, it's bad.
I spoke at a conference at Moundsville, and we were inside the yard of the prison. There's buildings out there. That's where the conference was, one of these buildings. So I never went into the prison because you go from the yard and then they take you around to there's a gateway off on the north side. And this was a guy, and he goes, "Oh, see that like latch, that hole up there?" And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, "That's where they hung people." Like, really? Cool. But it was creepy.
Yeah, man.
It was just creepy being around there. And then they didn't put us up in a hotel. It was some like house the church owned, and it was way up into these hills.
Yep.
We're driving on dirt road and trying to find this place, just surrounded by woods. It's on a side of a not a mountain, but a hill. I drove up there, and man, I'll tell you, I didn't really sleep.
Yep.
And Osmond, Osmond was talking at that. That's the guy from the UFO. And we were up there. I was like, damn, Rick. It's like, why couldn't they put us up in at least a Holiday Inn or something? Got us up in this house. I said, who knows what's up here in this hill?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. He goes, do you have everything? I said, yeah. He said, I really don't want to go out at night into my car. I don't want to go out there. Like, yeah, I don't either. Like, I just looking forward to morning. And these people that arranged this whole thing, their house was, they're talking about that, all this stuff going on. Like, all right. And then, put us up in this house. Now, nothing happened. Nothing paranormal happened while we're up there, but West Virginia is one thing, but sleeping on the side of a mountain or on one of those hills, yeah, it's like, yeah, I just
Yeah. Yeah. You say that while I currently live on this side of a mountain. On the side of a mountain.
no, no, thank you. Well, however, it be so humble,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
only so.
Hey, if you're into small town spooky, have you seen? And I know we're hitting the 2 hour mark here any minute, as I'll hop off of here. I'll let you go. But have you seen the? It's like a docu series. It's on YouTube. It's called Dark Holler.
No,
I think it would be right up your alley. And the the director, producer, videographer, his name is Ward. He goes out with Tony Merkel a lot, but Ward was also with us when we went to this Serpent Mound. And
oh,
actually, the guys that are on the show that it kind of revolves around are it's the same guys. I have like a 30-second cameo in that, but we talked all the time. We hung out off camera and stuff. Um, but yeah, it's the guys that I went with are the ones that's in this series, this docu series called Dark Holler. It's about a family, about a woman who had been possessed, and she was freed of this demon apparently during a baptism. It was really weird, but that's like kind of like the opener to the story. It wound up like just spider webbing all through the community. There's all this crazy stuff going on. There's all these paranormal connections. There's
West Virginia,
yeah, yeah. It's right here
and it's
In Logan County.
Holler is Holler, right?
Yep, that's it,
I'll tell you, I've been in those hollers, and those are scary.
dude.
You know,
Look,
I was winding around these hollers in I think that's Southern Ohio. Yeah, it was Southern Ohio. And I got kind of boogered. I got lost.
yeah, it's easy.
Man. And I passed this old man in front of this shack, and you could tell they were burning wood. There's, smoke coming out of the smoke stack or the chimney. And just looking at that, going, I don't see electric lines.
No, you probably won't.
And there's this old man standing out there. Well, I was boogered. I turned around. I came back and I was driving slow because, there's all sorts of turns and stuff. You're not going very fast. I couldn't have been going more than about 10 mile an hour. I'm like, okay, there's that old man. I noticed something was on his head. And then his arms started flailing. I'm pulling up there. I was like, what's going on? And I got there and there was this raccoon on its head and it was just going to town on him, just scraping his head. And the guy's arms are flailing and stuff. And it's just, oh my, like, should I stop? Like, no,
No, don't stop.
horror
Don't stop.
films, don't stop.
That's
Never stop.
probably his pet.
But
Don't stop.
maybe it was, I don't know, but it looked like it was just tearing him up.
May
He
have
was
been.
flailing around. It's like, that guy's getting attacked by a
Oh yeah,
raccoon.
it's fun every day here, man.
Well, that's Southern Ohio, West Virginia. It kind of all blends together. I mean, it's the same topography.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, you can, you get back in those hills. I was winding around one afternoon and there was this old church, and they had this white tent set up out in their yard, and all these people were dressed in white. And it's like, this is like snake worship thing. And I went by and, part of my family were Nazarenes. And, they evangelists and they really go after it.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of that, but they were all dressed in white, all the kids, all the adults. And they had this tent and they were engaged in something. I'm driving by slow. It's like, man, just keep going. But I don't know what they're doing up there, but that's like the old man and raccoon. Just keep going.
That's it, man.
Just keep going.
Hey, we
Yeah.
mind our business around here, man.
Yeah. Just there's no reason to stop. And so, yeah, you see a lot of DC things out there. And, we, first weekend, we went to 4 sites. I got done. Like, man, I'm tired. We went, did some hiking and all that. And like 4 sites. I went to 700. And they're like, wow, it just kind of shows you the magnitude
You're right. Yeah, no doubt.
of just going to all these places. Now, if I run into something, because, I wrote the Encyclopedia of Ancient Giants, I wrote the Nephilim Chronicles first. But, the whole thing was to prove Genesis 6:4 to be true.
Yes.
I've always believed that I am a soldier of God. I'm working not to preach the ministry to the flock or anything like that. I'm just one sentence. This is true. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that.
Amen.
And here's the evidence that that is. And the Amorite, the math and all that just goes to say, yeah, this was a real people. Of course, the Amorites controlled Babylon 2600 BC. They're real people, but they were here. And to prove that part, be like, I've been to all these sites. I've been there alone and I never got touched. Saw some things. Well, the demon in Gallipolis, that was a little different story. But except for that, and it's like, oh, maybe I've got protection. So I carry a Seal of Solomon medallion. And we went out last week and I had it in my pocket, but then I was reading about it. It's like, no, that's no good. That's like if you wear a necklace with a cross on it and think that, oh, I could go ghost hunting. I have no, I didn't. You've got to invoke, you know, Jennifer, she has the St. Michael's, but you have to invoke St. Michael. You have to invoke Solomon because Solomon was a demon slayer. Most people don't realize that. But Solomon, the sun, soul, sun, Hindi for sun, was an Egyptian word for sun, 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 sun.
Wow.
And then O is the 15th letter in the alphabet, which I think is an anagram of 1 plus 5, 1 plus 5, 1 plus 5, or 666. Solomon is 666. Because you see in Chronicle, I think it's in Chronicles, they bring Solomon 666 talents of gold.
Yep.
So it does show up. And I think there was another Adonakam. So add on another sun word. And there were 666 people with him. So 666 in the Bible, for most is associated with the sun. And what really gets me is 666 is the number of the beast. And it's like, nowhere in the Bible does it say that. You're reading it completely wrong. I'll be behind somebody in line and their change will be 666. And I'll be like, no, charge me another penny. It's like, I can't. You'll throw off the books. No, don't do it. It's like, look, dude, read that book that you carry so handsomely underneath your arm every Sunday, and then you throw it back on a counter after church is over, where it'll stay for another week. Read it. Let he who hath understanding count the number and that number. First, you have to understand, and it doesn't say the number, it says count the number. Well, what is the political climate at the time? It's when the Jews are being mistreated by the Romans. Now, take the Roman numerical system 100 or 500, 100, 50, 10, 5, 1, 6, 6, 6. Let he who hath understanding count the number. Who is the anti whatever Romans? That's what it's referring to.
Mm.
It all works out. It says count. So count the Roman numerical system and you'll get 666. Because other places it's associated with Solomon and it's associated with the sun. And to the Babylonians, it did not have a native connotation. And the Bible borrowed heavily from Babylonian stories. And to them, it was not evil either. It was a number for the sun. So they have had something called a magic square. So it's a series of 8 numbers across and 8 numbers down. And no matter adding them up, down, or diagonally, 6 numbers. Every time you'll get 111. So each side will always add up to 666. It's called a magic square. And they would carry that to ward off evil.
Really?
Yes. So 666, more of it's a sun number. Charleston 666, circumference of the 2 sun temples. Now there was a professor from MIT, and he deduced that the mound builders were using the same foot that we are, because in the Babylonian numerical system, it's a base 60, which you can break down to a base 12. Our 12-month calendar is Babylonian. The 12-hour, 24-hour clock is Babylonian. The astrology, the 12 houses, that's Babylonian. So we still have Babylonian things here, but then the 12-inch foot, that certainly beckons more to a Babylonian measure than anything coming out of Europe or anything like that. So really what the Rosetta Stone for me was that there is an earthwork, there's a hinge down in Lexington, Kentucky, north of that city. It's 555 feet. But if you take 555.5 times it by pi and string it out forever, you will get, what is it? Is it 1746? Something like that. But it's the sum total of 1080, which is a lunar or Earth mother, and 666. So if you add those, and like Chillicothe, the squares are all 1080 on each side. So we have 1080 shows up all the time in measures, but that 1080 generally is a reference to a lunar or an Earth mother. And then 666 would be your male. But the sum total of 666 and 1080 is what you'll get if you take 555.5 times pi. So 555 was just like the circles and the squares,
Right.
where you have that equality. Then 555 numerically represented both the male and the female, which the ancients would call the sacred marriage of opposites. Is what the circle and the square is, the sacred marriage of opposites, the male and the female. You want them to be equal because you don't want too much sun, you don't want too much rain from the Earth Mother. There has to be that balance. So all of this was made to create this balance of nature. Wait, that's the pill on Fox. This is I knew those were good. Whole chi has changed since I started So yeah, it's the river is much deeper. People know,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything you do and everything you see, but more so what you don't see.
Man. Man. Fritz Zimmerman, you have come up here and just blown it out of the water, sir. Yeah, I've loved every minute of this conversation. Uh,
Yeah.
I look forward to and I hope to see it soon. This series, the videos from Ancient Paranormal. But while we were off air, I threw your new book in my Amazon cart, so I'm gonna buy that as soon as we hop off here, probably. And when we end this, I'm going to send you the email with the Serpent Mound stuff. But before we go, if you don't mind, tell everybody how to get a hold of you or locate your works, where to find you at, and all that good stuff, in case they're living under a monolith and don't know.
Well, you can do an author search for Zimmerman or Ancient America: The Dark Side, Encyclopedia of Ancient Giants, Travel Guide to the Ancient Ruins in Ohio Valley, part of the Nephilim Chronicles series. So I'm pretty easy to find on Amazon. And like I said, newest book is Ancient America: The Dark Side. So if you're listening to this show, I would take it you have an interest in this topic. And so this is an introduction into a paranormal world that really nobody knows about. And then, of course, this Friday or Saturday, actually, I'm going to be the first investigator. So going to try to get evidence for you. And I think we will. So I don't know. I mean, it's really kind of a scary proposition as we get closer to the date. You're like, oh man, I could be on the couch watching football all day Saturday or out chasing demons.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
spending a lot of money doing it. Yeah.
well, well, Fritz, I'll definitely be keeping you in my prayers, man.
Well, I appreciate that. And for
I'll
everyone out there,
yeah,
that never hurts. So we will pray her up before, we hit these sites and then invoking uh St. Michael and Solomon and, get all the help we can while we're out there. So hopefully nothing happens, but I think we're protected. And like I said, they haven't touched me yet. So and you can't show fear.
that's right.
So you got to be strong when you do it. So you have to have that confidence that you're protected. So God forbid, well, we're going out there to see something, but then there's part of you that's like, we don't see a thing. But
Right.
we're going to. It's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But this is just part of my part of my trip in this life. So now we're going down yet another road.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. It's exciting, but it is scary, man. I pray that it doesn't follow you back home. This stuff tends to try to poke back sometimes. I've been poked back, so I pray that you don't.
No, I had something spend a day with me. Then I was there at that cemetery in Gallipolis. I'll tell you about that next time. Oh, that is not on my list of places for us to go because
Well,
I don't know if I want to go back there. I mean, that was so horrible. What happened in that cemetery in Gallipolis, Ohio? Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll go back. I'll send Jennifer up there. That is-
there you go. Well, we definitely got to get into that next time, man. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought of you sitting here talking. It's like, because I'm listing on my site list. So I kind of like, where are we going to go? It's like 25 sites right now is on the list. And I was just thinking, talking to you and talking about it, it's like, oh, that's not on the list. I mean, that's like the most horrible thing that ever happened to me. It's like, I don't want to go back there.
What?
So it's like, oh, is there more of those? Yeah. And that was something spent the day with me. That was bad. So yeah, yeah, great.
Man,
Yeah,
living
I wish I didn't remember that. It's like, oh yeah, bad things can happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, Bo, why don't you get back with me in about 6 weeks?
you got it.
Because I don't know, I may have videos coming out in I don't know, 2, 3 weeks probably.
Awesome.
So talk to a kid about doing some editing for me or fine tuning the editing for me. Um, I spent a week editing 90 seconds of video. 90 seconds.
Yeah,
Now, first I had to learn the program. So first 3 days I didn't get a whole lot done. And just making basic edits, but you got, a lot of moving parts in editing. And I
there
talked to
is.
this kid, he's going to school for it. And I said, like, yeah, I need some help. So he's going to help me out on this. He'll look a lot better. My 90 seconds didn't look all that great. I mean, I didn't have a big intro or anything like that. It's like, wow, this has to be better than this. Well, or does it? I mean, if you have a bunch of quality content, who cares what the, front end looks like?
That's
But
it.
we'll try to make it look better than what it is. Um, so yeah, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks, you know. I'm just gonna do a video per site, I think.
There you go.
So something's either gonna happen, but if something doesn't happen, I mean, certainly we're just gonna go and you're gonna go to an ancient site. I'll show old maps where all the mounds are, and then we're here, and then this mound's here, it's still there. And so, if it's a travel log and see those on YouTube, they get about 120 hits, but it'll be better than that.
Oh, I
I'm
know
not,
it will.
it's not my first rodeo, so
Right.
uh, we'll have some good stuff on this.
Good deal, man.
So I'll talk to you soon, Bo.
Yeah, yeah. I'll holler at you. I'll holler at you, man. Thank you for coming on. God
Yeah,
bless.
speaking of that, I'm gonna call it a night, and I'm gonna flip, and I'm gonna watch this Dark Holler thing.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do that. I wasn't really had anything on my itinerary that I wanted to watch, so yeah, I'm gonna flip that on.
Sweet.
Okay.
All
Well,
right,
look,
man.
Bo,
All
it's
right.
good chatting with you. I mean, time always goes by fast.
It does.
Yeah, it's like sitting down with an old friend, Bo. So I'll give you a shout. I'll give you a shout about a month ago. I'll let you know what we're doing. I may say, hey, I gotta come on the show right away.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right,
All
we'll
right,
do.
man. All right,
All right.
later.
All right. Good night, Bo.
Night.
All right.